Imagine a world where the most powerful empire on earth was secretly ruled by women hidden behind golden lattice screens. No crowns, no thrones, just whispers, letters, and brilliant political maneuvers that changed the fate of nations. This isn't a fantasy. This is the untold story of the Ottoman Sultanas, the women who held the empire in the palm of their hands while the world believed only men were in charge. Centuries before modern feminism, these women dictated policies, orchestrated wars, and toppled viziers, all while navigating a palace built like a gilded prison. The harem, often reduced to a place of sensual pleasures in Western imagination, was actually a political war zone where only the most intelligent, ruthless, and strategic minds survived. But let's rewind. How did women, in a deeply patriarchal empire, come to wield such unshakable influence? It all started with the rise of Hurrem Sultan, a slave girl turned queen, whose intelligence and charm ensnared Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. Unlike any woman before her, she didn't just sit pretty. She became his most trusted advisor, breaking centuries of tradition by marrying the Sultan and gaining political legitimacy. She wrote letters to foreign monarchs, influenced diplomacy, and manipulated palace politics to place her son on the throne. Love story? Hardly. This was a master class in political strategy. And then came Nurbanu Sultan, a Venetian-born slave who didn't just whisper in the Sultan's ear. She outright dictated Ottoman policies. As the empire expanded, so did her influence, extending to the Venetian Republic and beyond. When her son, Murad III, ascended the throne, Nurbanu became the de facto ruler, deciding who lived and who died in the empire's cutthroat court politics. But if you thought that was as intense as it gets, let me introduce you to the true architect of imperial power, Kösem Sultan. Kosem didn't just influence one sultan. She ruled through multiple reigns, outlasting rivals, foreign conspiracies, and assassins lurking in the shadows. When her husband died, she became the power behind the throne for her young son. When he died, she controlled the next. She negotiated peace treaties, removed disloyal viziers, and even faced down a military rebellion. She was the shadow emperor, untouchable, until she wasn't. Power, after all, makes enemies. One fateful night, her enemies struck back, and the woman who had ruled an empire met her brutal end. But this was not just about personal ambition. The role of the sultanas extended beyond palace intrigues. They shaped policies that influenced trade routes, impacted European alliances, and even played a role in determining the outcomes of wars. Their influence reached beyond the Ottoman Empire, affecting the global balance of power. They corresponded with foreign rulers, secretly negotiating terms and sealing alliances with words, not swords. And often, their impact was felt not just in the moment, but for generations to come. Take Safi Sultan, a formidable woman who maintained complex diplomatic relations with Queen Elizabeth I of England. While the men of the empire engaged in battle, these women waged wars of their own, wars of intellect, diplomacy, and political maneuvering that determined the fate of entire dynasties. They understood that true power was not in brute force but in the ability to manipulate those who wielded it. The Topkapi Palace was not just a residence, it was a battlefield. The air inside the harem was thick with ambition, tension, and the silent echoes of those who had come before. Each woman who stepped into this world knew that survival meant mastering the game. One wrong move, and they could disappear overnight, lost to history like so many before them. But those who survived, those who thrived, left an undeniable mark on the empire. The whispers of the harem dictated the policies of an empire. Some of these women came from the farthest reaches of the world, Venetian shores, Crimean palaces, Persian courts, brought in as slaves, trained in the delicate art of survival, and transformed into the silent architects of power. The power struggles were not just limited to the walls of the palace but extended into the very fabric of the empire. It was a world where a carefully chosen word could save a life or end it, where alliances were sealed with unseen hands, and where the mere suggestion of disloyalty could erase a name from history. Even after the so-called Sultanate of Women ended, their legacy endured. Their policies, their influence, and their stories refused to be buried. The world may not have always recognized their contributions, but history remembers. And history tells us one undeniable truth: power does not ask permission. It is taken, wielded, and shaped by those bold enough to seize it. Now, here's the real question. How many powerful women throughout history have been erased, their stories reduced to footnotes in the grand narrative of kings and emperors? What other forgotten queens, empresses, and political masterminds have shaped history without ever wearing a crown in public? The empire of the Ottoman Sultanas may have been secret, but their impact? That was undeniable. And if history has taught us anything, it's that power doesn't always reside on a throne. It lurks in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. So the next time someone tells you history is just a story of great men, remember this: the greatest empires were often ruled by those whose names were never meant to be known.